Just yell, I'm like, hey, he's got a light on the left side. I didn't even finish saying that sentence. I just heard a big explosion, and I felt like someone just punched me in the face hard. And I hear like screaming, and like, you know, just felt like glass broke or something.
What's up? Welcome back to the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. I am Jordan.
And I am Ben.
And today we have a very special guest, Gio. I'm so excited for Gio. We're going to have him share his story. It's going to be a little bit different than what we're used to. Gio is a great dude. He is a former Marine or Marine retired. No, there is no former Marines. So Marine retired. He was in the Navy as a medic. He worked as an EMT. He went to paramedic school, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Now he's in nursing school, and he went and volunteered over in Ukraine. So, Gio, man, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's we got to chat a lot, or not a lot, I guess a good amount before we started recording, but obviously we were kind of explaining that typically a guest of ours would be, you know, whether they're a dad or they're not. The whole message of what we're wanting to portray on this podcast is simply being a good human being, whether you're a dad or not. And we always say too, like, every single person has their story, and the goal for us in sharing these stories and having guests like Gio to come on is just to, I think it's important, and this will really help us with what I want to say, but it's important that we share life experiences with other people in order to potentially help somebody, right? Like, if you went through a bunch of crap, like you're going to hear from Gio, and you don't do anything with that, for me, I feel like that'd be a big waste. And the world is evil, and there's a lot of evil and a lot of corruption, and a lot of bad things happen to great people, and bad things happen to bad people. But if we constantly shelter it and don't speak about it and try to use our platforms to help people, I feel like we're not doing our jobs and being good stewards of that. But Gio, we're going to kind of just have you jump right in and just kind of share about who you are, where you've been, and what you've done, as much as you want to share, and what's led us to sitting in this room together.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
First of all, a little bit about myself. I'm a Marine veteran. I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years. I was an infantryman. I got out as a sergeant. I joined the Navy a month after getting out to be a corpsman. And then I got out of the Navy in 2022. And that's when the war in Ukraine started. And that's kind of what started my little journey up to this point, where I went to Ukraine as a volunteer on my own to serve as a combat medic. And yeah, I mean,
Can you explain in however you can what sparked you to want to go volunteer after how many years of service? 10, 12?
About, 10.
10 years. Mm-hmm. So 10 years of service to the Marine Corps and the Navy. Like, 10 years in itself is no easy feat. I only did 4, man, and 4 was good. But what sparked something inside of you to want to do that after doing everything you just did?
Well, I think as a man, your duty to serve should never really be over. Whether, you know, you're going to serve your family one day. You got to serve other people. I think if you are able-bodied and you're able to help somebody or serve in any way, you should always strive to do that for as long as you're able to, you know. And for me, when the war started in Ukraine, you know, I had the experience of a Marine infantryman. I was an 0311. I was a TCCC instructor. I've worked in the ER for a couple of years. I've worked in the ambulance doing 911. And so in a combat zone, you need medics and you need people who could fight. Mm-hmm. So watching the scale of the invasion of what was happening in Ukraine, you know, I was watching it while I was at work the night the war started, and I saw buildings getting blown up. Like it looks like you're watching a movie. It looked like downtown LA, these big buildings just getting hit, Russian jets flying over, and to see that happening in this day and age, I feel like this is not just another conflict that's happening in the world. This is a freaking invasion. This is a full-scale war from Russia, from a superpower that's been that we've had our eyes on Russia since,
like forever.
Yeah. So I knew that I had to go help. I couldn't just sit back and hopefully they figure it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I bought my plane ticket a few days later, and by the week after, I was out in Kiev, the same city that I saw getting bombed that night that was getting hit. I was there loading magazines and getting ready to go fight against the Russian airborne.
I want you to, if you feel comfortable, I want you to explain to people, because even to myself, dude, until asking you before we started recording, I was curious because when you're in the United States military, the Marine Corps for us, like when you're in the Marine Corps and they tell you, hey, Briggs, you're deploying. You're like, okay, cool. Everyone tells you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. They give you the gear to do it, and you basically just fall in line like an assembly, right? You just do what you're told. And for you and all the other volunteers that have gone out there too, because there has been a lot of them, and I want to shout out every single person that has felt the call and answered it. I think if you want to side with you or without you, like the fact that you had balls to go do that, like that's more than most people have in today's world, right? But for you to just be able to hop on a plane from John Wayne or wherever, LAX, wherever you are, San Diego airport, wherever you are, you hop on a plane and you fly there. What in the heck did you do to even get to where you went?
I didn't really have a plan. I took all like my old gear from my time in the Marine Corps. I got a plate carrier. I took my little waffle top, because that's essential. That's my favorite piece of gear. And I took some hiking pants that I bought here in Huntington Beach, some that I've had, and my Marine Corps boots, and just kind of went out there. I didn't have a plan. I know I bought my plane ticket that took me to Warsaw because there was no flights going into Ukraine. And I just kind of, like I said, I didn't think about it much. I just jumped on the plane and figured it out as I went. While I was waiting so I went from John Wayne to Switzerland. John Wayne to San Francisco International to Switzerland, and then Switzerland to Poland. While I was in Switzerland, I had a layover, so I'm like going online trying to figure out, okay, it's my first time in Europe ever.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out online how volunteers are getting there, because there's already talk of like volunteers going to help, because President Zelensky made a kind of like a plea, any foreigner that wants to come fight alongside Ukrainians to fight for our freedom and for democracy in Europe, we'll welcome you with open arms. So, there was threads and stuff on Facebook, and everybody kept kind of talking about going to Reddit. And I've never been like a big like social media online guy, so I had to download Reddit and see how that worked. And I found a guy who he kind of offered his services. He goes, "Hey guys, I'm in Poland. If you guys need a ride to the Ukrainian border, I'll take care of you." And while I was in Switzerland, I sent him a message and I told him, "Hey, I'm an American. I'm a Marine vet. I'm a medic. I have some gear with me. I want to go help." And I told him I'll be in Poland in like an hour. And to my surprise, he replied within like 5-10 minutes, and he sent me like a screenshot of the maps where he goes, "Okay, I'm on my way to pick you up." And so that was reassuring, because now at least I know I'm going to be in Ukraine and I could, find my way around. Yeah. My thing is always, if it didn't work out, like the Ukrainian military or whatever international, unit that they were building up, if it wasn't going to work out, I could easily just go join a militia. Because there was dudes out there, like just groups of dudes just getting together with Molotov cocktails and just like ambushing Russian tanks and stuff. And so I said, hey, hey, I'm down for whatever. We could do some gangster shit and, like do some guerrilla stuff, or I could join their international brigade and go from there. So, yeah.
That's pretty wild.
So what was it like? Like when you showed up, like how did you end up getting into the fight? Like what was that process kind of look like?
So when I got to the Ukrainian border, the border guard asked me, seeing my passport, he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And I told him, I'm here to help. I'm a Marine veteran. I can help out however you guys need me. He had me get into like this van. He goes, okay, come with me. I said bye to my ride, who drove me from the Polish airport to the border. They put me in this van and they drove me. And like I said, now I'm a little nervous because it's like, first of all, it's cold as fuck out there. Excuse my language, but and I was born and raised here in SoCal, so I'm like, dude, I was not ready for this, And but just even at the border, it was very tense. There was a line of people trying to get out of Ukraine, all women and children, and they were all on foot for miles and miles. Like as we were driving past the border, just old ladies, women on foot, freezing in the cold. Like I was in the car and I was freezing. I could only imagine how they felt trying to get out of there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, right off the bat, I'm like, all right, like this is it, and I showed up. They drove me to this building, and there was already like a line of like these Ukrainian guys sitting, like they're in line filling out paperwork, and I knew they're all like enlisting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the age bracket was, but if you were between like 18 and I think it was up to like 60, you had to like stay in the country and fight, unless you had some kind of like medical like condition where a doctor said you can't. And the guy just kind of walked me all the way past the line to this like this officer. And it's funny because this officer, like they talked in Ukrainian. He looked at me and he like stood up and he spoke English, like very thick accent. But he goes, where are you from? And I introduced myself. I'm Gio. And I'm like, I'm from Los Angeles, because no one knows Orange County out there. So he goes, oh, Los Angeles, Hollywood. And he like shakes my hand, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But it was cool. Like it's funny because I saw he had like, dude, he looked like the typical like Soviet era like uniform, like. But he had a 1911 holster with it, and I'm like, dude, that is gangster, dude. I want one of those, And yeah, I told him, he pulls me aside. He goes, why are you here, Giovanni? Do you just want to kill people? And I kind of looked at him and I told him no. Like I was a little put off by that question because I'm like, why would someone just show up to do that? That's fucked,
Yeah. I
told him I want to help. I have medical stuff here in my bag. I have my vest, and I told him you could. It was him and another officer. I'm like, you guys could send me to a hospital. I could go help in a hospital, or I can go be a combat medic. And they told me, well, hospitals are getting bombed right now. Orphanages are getting bombed. If you want a chance to live, or not get hurt, you should be a combat medic. We'll give you a rifle. And I said, perfect. And they were telling me that I had to sign a contract. It's a 3-year contract or until the war is over. And that's when I kind of pumped the brakes and I'm like, I'm not signing a contract. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is going to work out. I'll just drop me off the side out here. I'll find, I'll go do some guerrilla stuff with some boys, And they're like, no, okay. Like they talked and they said, look, there's a group of Ukrainian Special Forces guys. They're coming. They're fighting right now, but they're coming tonight in a truck to pick up more ammo. You can be a medic, you go with them, and you don't need to sign a contract. And I said, perfect. So he got happy. He like shook my hand, and then the other officer, he shook my hand, and he goes, happy hunting, my friend. And that's when I'm like, oh shit, And they asked me, they pointed to some boxes and they go 556 or 762, and I said 556 because that's what we're used to.
Yeah.
And I thought I was gonna get an M4, right? No, I got this. They gave me this Belgian FNC rifle. It was weird, man. It was this weird, clunky thing. The charging handle was on the right side. Like, it was just weird. But it fired 556, and yeah, I'm not used to the AK platform.
Yeah,
It's
I
weird.
wouldn't be. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be good with that either.
I had to use it in a firefight one time in a trench, and it was just, I got frustrated trying to reload it because I'm so used to just like sliding the mag in
Yeah.
instead of doing that little clip.
Oh, yeah.
I was pissed, dude. Yeah, but yeah, and then from there, you know, that night I got picked up and driven to Kiev, and yeah, we're looking at some of these buildings. When I was in Kiev, I saw the same buildings I saw while I was in the hospital. Again, you know, when I was watching it on TV.
Yeah. And man, there's obviously a lot of emotions that go into that. And I think what's crazy is the world we live in today is so polarizing. And especially when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, or I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but Israel and Palestine, like there's just so many polarizing views. But I feel like the one common thing in both of these is we're forgetting that humans are humans and lives matter. And can you kind of walk us through some of the emotions you were feeling? Were you, were you scared? Were you angry? Like what was that like for you as you were getting into Kiev?
It's scary. It is scary once you're there because, you know, it's one thing to you know, think about being at war. It's one thing to actually, you know, when you start feeling the concussions of the bombs or the ground vibrate or, you know, stuff, and just how cold it is. Like, dude, the first time I saw snowfall was in Ukraine. Like,
Dang.
it was cold, man. And yeah, like I agree. Like at the end of the day, the Ukrainians, they all just want peace. They want to raise their families, you know, their kids. Everybody just wants to be a good dude. That's what I see. That's how I see it, you know. And a lot of the Ukrainians, like I said, I told people before, they remind me so much of just like me and the boys, like me and my boys, how we joke around, how we, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but now like their home is being attacked. So they're over here just scrambling, trying to figure out how they could fight, how they could help. Even driving down Kiev, you know, there's checkpoints every mile or so. And they're just sandbags and fucking barricaded cars with the popped tires. City buses parked horizontally with the tires popped. And like dudes like on the side, like letting cars in. And it's funny because there was like stacks of boxes that looked like 24 packs of beer. But all the bottles had like rags on top. Yeah. Like 'cause these guys were like ready.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's scary, and you're just like, okay, here I am. Like, let's do this. You know,
Yeah.
I was scared, but at the end of the day, like, I knew what I was there to do. I was there to help people, and you know, me being a Christian, what better way, you know, if I was to die, what better way to die than to helping, you know, doing it in the act of helping other people.
Yeah.
You know, so that takes away a lot of fear.
Yeah. How much of your faith played into your ability to just navigate the situations you were finding yourself in?
I mean, you're still scared the whole time. And there was a time when we were in this forest outside Kiev. The Russian airborne was in this village right in front of us. We're trying to push into the village, and we're getting hit with artillery every few seconds. You would hear them like launch the artillery, and then you hear it fly overhead, and you start hearing like it impact near you. The trees are falling. It was a dense forest, and after like the second day, there wasn't many trees standing. They all fell down around us. And I remember at one point we were shooting on the right side. We saw some Russians, and a round landed behind me, and it flipped me on my back. Like the concussion just pushed me, and it flipped me on my back. And I remember laying there, and I couldn't hear. Like I heard that ringing sound.
I'd say that ring.
Yeah. And I was looking at the sky. It was cloudy. And I just kind of thought to myself, like, that could have been it right there. everything that I've accomplished in my life, you know, everything that everybody's known me for would have ended right here in this little crappy hole next to this dead body with some trash. Like, that would have been it. And nobody here would have known, you know. All people here would have known was, oh, Joe died in Ukraine, you know. And I remember sitting there, like, you know, they teach you in EMT school, wiggle your toes, make sure you're good. And I'm like sitting there, like, I couldn't hear shit. I'm looking at the cloudy sky, and my favorite Bible verse came to mind, which is Romans 8:18. And that verse goes, these present sufferings are nothing compared to the glory that awaits us. And so, you know, my dad passed away a few years ago. And so it did bring a lot of peace, you know, especially in that moment where if I died tonight, if I die in the next few days or in a few hours, you know, or in a few minutes, I'm going to be hanging out with my dad. I'm going to see my dad again. My dad was my best friend, you know. And hey, that sounds a lot better than being in this forest getting fucking my shit rocked, you know?
Right.
And so that took away a lot of the fear, you know, because it whatever we're going through, even now in life, whatever we're going through is not going to compare to the glory that awaits us up there in heaven, you know? And so that, you know, having that in mind took away some of the fear. I mean, you're still scared. You can't not be scared.
Right.
But you do have some peace of mind in that, all right, regardless of what I do, I could do my job. And I tell people it's kind of scary when you kind of accept that, in the sense you're already gonna die or you're already a dead man, because you do some wild shit when you're in, you know, while you're in theater, while you're fighting.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple times where, like, we were close to the Russians. You could hear them talk. And yeah, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like that. My brother had explained it to me. He's a Fallujah vet. It's like that, like that instinctual, like kind of like, we call it like the monkey brain, where you're just like focused on survival, where you don't think a lot. A lot of stuff falls back to reflex and training in the Marine Corps and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I kind of looked at it. I still have that same outlook in life. You know, whatever happens now, as stressful or as scary as things may be, it doesn't, you know, we're only here for a short amount of time. So,
dude, it's kind of crazy to also think of, while you're out there, over there doing what you're doing, like, I don't think people will fully grasp the concept of, this was only a year ago, right? A year ago,
so that battle, that was 2022 when the war started. But I got hurt in Ukraine on Valentine's Day of last year.
So, and we're going to ask you about that too, and you can share again as much as you want or as little as you want. But the crazy part about this is, and I think I am like, I fall into this category sometimes myself now, because sometimes you just get so complacent with your life and what in this, right? We all refer to this as the bubble. And dude, you're out there on your own time, your own money, your own accord, and you're doing what you think is the right thing to do, as, like you said, as a man, as serving, like, this is what you are called to do. And we're freaking sitting here in Orange County having coffees, going to the beach. We bought a Sprinter van last summer, you know, like all these things, right? Like, and I'm not knocking that. That's not what I'm doing here. But I think what I want to really highlight, and with just you, man, like, it really validates like how damn lucky we are.
Oh, absolutely. And the only reason we're lucky now is because we've had brave men, ancestors, you know, that fought any threat to our country.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's something people, again, people in just today's world right now, we don't realize, like, as America, do we have issues? 1,000%.
Absolutely.
But go to Ukraine, go to Russia, go to Zimbabwe, go to Iraq, Afghanistan, go anywhere else in the world and freaking see what it's really like to not have the freedoms that we have here, and then come at me with some dumb crap and be like, oh my gosh, we're all these things.
It was the weirdest thing out there when you know, I would leave my phone on our little base. We took over like a little village, and the village people let us use some of the houses there. I would always leave my phone on base because if I was killed, I didn't want the Russians like, you know,
Yeah.
finding the dick pics, you know. And so, and but it was crazy because we would, you know, when I was in Ukraine last year, we were assaulting trenches in eastern Ukraine. We'd hold the trench until we were replaced with like another infantry unit, and then we would get picked up. But the whole night we're eating artillery or, you know, drones flying overhead and dropping mortar rounds or stuff like that. And then I'd go back to the village, grab my phone, and I'd go on Instagram. And my coworkers from the hospital here are like posting selfies in Cancun with their drinks. And it's like, oh, posted on their stories, posted 3 hours ago. And they're in a sunny beach in Cancun. 3 hours ago, I was in this trench getting hit. Like you could hearing a Russian tank like crunch through the trees and branches, and you're just like scared for your life. And then to see that, or another time I'd come, and that's when I kind of started realizing there's some like I thought I was on another planet, because I'd go on Instagram after another time, another mission, and people were posting about how expensive eggs are getting. And I'm like, what the hell's going on over there? What's going on in America? Like, should I start gathering eggs here in Ukraine to like send home or something? Because it sounds bad, whatever's going on with these eggs, man. And yeah, it's a different, we're in a bubble,
Yeah.
you know, and I think, you know, that saying is true where, you know, what is it? Weak times create hard men. Hard men create good times.
Yeah.
And then good times create weak men. And then it just repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that's something that people need to understand that. And I tell people now, you know, when I talk about my experiences in Ukraine, I tell people, you guys need to prepare to protect your families when shit goes down. Inevitably, someone's going to, you know, come here and burst our bubble. Or we're going to have a natural disaster, something crazy. We live in California. There's earthquakes. You know, we can't be relying on, you know, emergency services and stuff all the time. I think the best thing to do to prepare your family and yourselves right now is buy emergency food, have a way to defend your family, yourself, you know, because I feel like, you know, when people get desperate for basic resources, violence ensues. There's no telling how desperate people are going to get, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it's you learn a lot, you know, with the experiences that, you know, being in combat. You know, I'm sure
Yeah.
the same thing when you appreciated everything coming back home, even having
yeah.
a pillow, dude. Like, you don't think about that stuff until you're there. And
Yeah.
you're
Or a
missing-
bed or
Yeah,
running water.
Exactly, clean water, dude.
It's a trip, dude. Because, I mean, mine and your stories can't even compare, though. I was in the Marine Corps again, you know, like they're very similar experiences, but the difference is you put yourself there on your own time in your own way. I was there because
You signed
I
up.
signed up,
Yeah.
and that's where they put you.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, did we go into villages with no like running water or something? Yeah, but I signed up for that.
Yeah.
And I know you technically signed up for it by sending
Yeah.
yourself, but I think the thing that is so unique about what you did, dude, is the fact that you were in real life and chose to go because you felt the call.
Yeah.
Like, that's drastically different than me getting deployed to Afghanistan in 2009 because my unit got deployed.
Yeah.
Where do you think some of that came from? Like, do you feel like that call came from just your prior service and you felt like there was a need? Did it come from, you think, your childhood, that like growing up you felt like that protector gene? Like, where do you think that came from?
You know, a lot of it, you know, my dad would teach me these things. My family is, my mom and dad are from Mexico, and they came here as illegal immigrants back in the 80s. And the one thing my dad always told me is, you know, your mom was pregnant when we came here to the U.S., and my dad did everything he could to make sure my mom had like food and stuff like that. And it was hard for them, you know, and no matter the adversity that my dad faced, he would have to go to work on a bicycle and like 2 cities away. And people would throw eggs at him, water bottles would piss, you know, but my mom but he always made sure my mom was good, you know. My mom was safe and, you know, had a place. So my dad always told me, you know, when you're married, your wife becomes your priority. It doesn't matter, like, yeah, take care of your siblings and stuff, but when you get married and you start your own family, that's your priority. And so, you know, with my military experience and the skills I learned as a Marine infantryman, I mean, I started learning to take care of my Marines. You know, you take care of your boys, they're going to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I spoke about this on the Urban Valor podcast, but I had this one Marine. This guy was a freaking shitbag. Like, did you hear that one?
No, but that's hilarious.
So this guy, dude, he shows up. He was already kind of a problem Marine. Went UA, and then applied for PD one day, and like 6 months later, I get a call from a background investigator asking me, like, "Hey, what could you tell me about this guy?" And I'm like, "Yo, you talked to him?" Because I haven't talked to him, dude. He bounced. He like just, you know, blocked everybody. And so the background investigator was a Marine too, and he goes, "Okay, we're done here with his, you know." And literally like 2 hours later, I get a call from him saying, "Hey man, like I want to go back to, you know, drill with you guys." And I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck, man? Like I was always good to you. I was never a shitbag. I was never like bad to any of my Marines." And he shows up, just causing more problems. We're about to deploy, and you know, we had formation at 4:30 and we had PT after. This guy doesn't show up, right? And so he shows up 2 hours late while we're in the middle of PT. And I see him running in, and he's wearing desert camis, and we're all wearing the green Woodlands, right? And so I meet him halfway down the parking lot, and I start fucking yelling at him. He stands at parade rest, right? And I'm like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" You know, I'm like pointing, like tapping his chest, right? Because I'm pissed, dude. Because I pleaded his case to the higher ups. I'm like, "Hey, let's give him another chance," right?
Yeah.
Life happens, you know. He has to take care of his family, so. That's, you know, it is what it is. And dude, I'm yelling at him, and he starts responding, you know, "Yes, corporal, no, corporal." But I smell alcohol in his breath, and now I'm just like more pissed off. I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck?" And I remember I pointed at his chest, and I'm like, from now on, I point at his name tag. When I hear that name, I'm gonna think fucking shitbag, you know, piece of shit.
Yeah.
He gets pissed. He goes from, like, he starts screaming. He's like, "What?" And he like turns to like fucking, you know, he's gonna punch me, and I push him, and we start getting into it, right? And it's funny because immediately I just hear all these footsteps, right? And I see my boy grabs me, he like bear hugs me and like pulls me away. He goes, "Hey brother, you good?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm good, let me go." And I look over, dude, and the whole platoon is beating this guy's ass, dude. The whole platoon, dude. And it was the funniest thing because I had like a boot drop like the week before, and even like these boots are like fucking stomping him, dude, like little gangster style. And but that made me happy because, you know, it shows like, hey, you know, you take care of your boys, they'll have your back.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, going back to that, like that's where I first learned to kind of be a protector and to be, you know, to watch out for those I care about. Mm-hmm. And it's translated, you know, well into like, you know, my relationships and dating and so, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's something that you can't fully teach, I don't think. I think sometimes you have it instilled in you and you're taught as like a young man, a young woman, you see these things, right? So it becomes like your instinct. And that's why us as fathers, like, it's so important for us to really live out what we say, right? It's so easy to sit in this room on a freaking podcast recording to say you're doing all these things, but actually doing them in your real life, like that's where it matters. But I mean, again, dude, if you want to share as much or as little as you want, I want to go back to your time in Ukraine and kind of just what led you to being here right now. So you obviously got hurt. If you want to share about that, you can.
So I got hurt on Valentine's Day last year, 2023. So at that point I was with the 59th Brigade of the Ukrainian military. We were assaulting trenches in eastern Ukraine, and we would dismount. We would get in Humvees and get as close as we could to the Russian trench with our 50 cal providing cover. And dude, we would dismount, and like I made it. I kind of started telling the guys to make it like an SOP to when we already dismounted, or when we're about to dismount, we started putting tourniquets on our thighs and our extremities, because the biggest chances of getting hit while dismounting is when you're just coming out. So you open the door, and sometimes the doors are, you could get hit with PKM rounds as the door's opening. You could see the Humvee picture. Our Humvee had bullet holes like bullet impacts on the side and on the windows. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we were doing out there. And because I was the medic, I was also on every QRF mission. And so even during the day or night, if another unit needed help, we'd go up and with the 50 cal guns blazing, getting out and seeing what's going on, if there's anyone hurt. Or sometimes we just, if we're gonna go hit a trench that night, we would go during the day and we'd just straight up do a drive-by, dude, gangster style, just to see how much return fire we're getting, so we can kind of have an idea of how many guys we're gonna be going up against that night. So it was wild, man. Like doing actual drive-by shootings, from a Humvee, and just to have an idea. And going back to when I got hurt, it was Valentine's Day. The night before, I think it was the night before or 2 nights before, we had just gotten hit with white phosphorus on the way to assault a trench, and it's hard to fall asleep after like a mission because your adrenaline's going, and for me it seemed like I just barely closed my eyes, and all of a sudden our translator comes up and talks and goes, "Doc, like Yuri, let's go. We got a mission." And I remember I woke up and I'm like, oh, shit, it's Valentine's Day in the U.S. And I had ordered my mom flowers from we had a Wi-Fi there, like that space. What's that thing called?
SpaceX.
Yeah.
They're
Starlink.
Starlink. There you go. Yeah. And so I had ordered my mom flowers to be delivered here. And so as I'm like putting on my gear, my belt with my med bag and stuff, I was like, I need to get my phone and tell my mom, like, make sure the dog's inside. So I'm like, Mom, happy Valentine's Day. You're getting flowers delivered to you. So put the dog inside, and I got to go, but we'll talk later. And it's crazy because that was the last time I talked to my mom till I don't know how much time passed after I got hurt from like the blood loss. I passed out from the blood loss and stuff. But anyways, we get in the Humvee, and we get to a position where we're gonna assault, and the 50 cal opens up, and I remember he opens up with a 50 cal, and I'm kind of like relaying anything that he's saying, that Yuri's saying to our translator. And as he's opening up with a 50, I'll show you guys a video later. He sees a light. So he starts saying, I got a light on the left side. So he kept saying that he sees a light, and he kept repeating it. So I'm like, that's important. So I relay it to the, because I was behind the passenger seat. And so I start saying, hey, he's got a light on the left side. But right before I finish that sentence, I just hear an explosion. I feel an explosion. And I felt like someone just punched me in the face. And I kind of stopped. I heard screaming. And that's, we talked earlier about, like, I looked down and I saw myself covered in blood. And the Humvee was on fire. There's like ammo cans all over the ground. And so, yeah, we got hit with a Russian anti-tank rocket, a Kornet missile. And the other Ukrainians in the other Humvee ran up to me, dragged me out. And it's weird being the medic because I was the one being dragged now. Normally, you're dragging other dudes, right? So I knew something was wrong. And then they laid me down in the secondary Humvee on the gunner's platform. And I'm laying on my left side, but I saw this blood coming out. And I knew something was wrong. I know I was like, I wiggled my toes. I'm like, I'm good, but something's not right. I felt like someone punched me in the face. That's about it. and this blood puddle's just getting bigger and bigger, and I just hear explosions outside. I hear like a firefight, and I'm thinking something is not right. We should be moving right now, but I'm just laying here. And once again, I start, thinking, paramedic school, you learn about shock, decompensated shock, and, stage 1, stage 2, right? And I'm like, this is a lot of blood. It's literally just pouring out. It's not stopping. And then all of a sudden I start throwing up, and I can't help it. Like it's just happening. I just keep throwing up. And I started thinking like I'm gonna die. And so I started looking around, because I've had patients, and I'm sure you guys have heard, when someone's about to die, they see a bright light. So I'm like looking at the windshield of the Humvee, just trying to see if I could see a light. Or people also say they see dead family members when they're about to pass away. So I'm like looking around, trying to see if maybe I could see my dad's hands or something. And nothing, dude. I just kept seeing tracer rounds. I heard a drone. And what they were trying to do while I was laying there is they were getting all like the weapons and stuff out of the first Humvee, trying to get the 50 out of there, because we can't leave them with anything, anything useful. And so finally we start moving. We pack everybody into that Humvee, and they drive me to like this CCP, this casualty collection point, like close to the front, but it's like a warehouse. It's like a warehouse turned into a freaking hospital. And they got me out of that Humvee. They put me on this like metal board, which it reminded me of the ambulance days. Like it's a backboard. And so now they dragged me, they put me on this backboard, and then they put me on a gurney. And it's just weird, because at work in the hospital, I push gurneys all the time. So it felt weird being on a gurney, And then they bring me to this room. They sit me up to take off my vest. And I remember something was very wrong when all the nurses and doctors and soldiers that were there looking at me, they all looked scared. And like they're like taking off my vest, my belt, and like I had grenades everywhere, because when you assault trenches, you want to throw grenades before jumping in. So I had trenches clipped on everywhere, grenades clipped on everywhere. And then they start cutting off my clothes, and then when they had my arms out and I started feeling pokes, that's when I kind of relaxed a little, and I'm like, okay, Gio, you're good. Like, they're starting lines, whatever's going on, you're okay. And then I kind of just laid down, and it's like I just fell asleep and like woke up. I don't know how much time passed. And one of the Americans that was there with me goes, hey, Doc, like you guys got hit with a Hornet missile. You lost your eye. But my first question was, is everybody alive? Is everybody okay? And he goes, yeah, everybody's fucked up, but everyone's alive.
No way.
And so I was like, all right, cool. And that's when he had got me my phone. He went back to base, got me my phone, and that's when I started like making phone calls to like my best friend. My best friend Scott, he's a Marine too. I met him in the ambulance.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And yeah, man. And then from that point, it was just, I started telling them like, all right, I need to go back to the US. I need to get to a hospital. I still had to buy my own plane ticket to go back to the US. Still commercial. I was flying with like a bloody gauze on my face. So yeah, man. And that was a year ago. I got back to the US, went back to the hospital that I worked at, and I was a patient there for like a month, dude. And then I was discharged, and even at home, I was on a PICC line, giving myself antibiotics for another month and a half after that. And it's still a process, man. I had surgery a few months ago. So yeah, it's a journey. Still got shrapnel in my hand. And
Dude, the journey doesn't even describe it. Like, the fact that you got blown up in a place that you were volunteering to be and had to buy your own freaking plane ticket coming home is the most insane thing I think I've heard in a long ass time. Like, flying commercial after you just went through what you went through.
Yeah.
To come home to that, like, dude, that's I honestly, I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, and like I mean, you guys will probably link my Instagram.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you
we
guys
will.
could see like the X-ray
Yeah.
image or the CT image. My
Yeah.
whole orbital was fractured, and even the doctors here. You know, it's a funny story. But one of the doctors that I work with in the hospital in the ER, he was my commander when I was in the Navy when I was a corpsman.
Oh, way.
Okay.
So he was there that night, you know, that I got here, and he was telling me it's a miracle you even lived through the flight because you have a brain bleed and like the pressure difference and
Yeah.
with everything. So everybody tells, first of all, it's that you got hit with a missile that's intended for tanks, and you were in a soft armored Humvee, you know. So yeah, it's only by God's grace that I'm still here,
Amen.
and yeah, because that was bad. Yeah.
Dang.
And so, guys, what's crazy about this again is there's so many things that are crazy, dude. You have a crazy story, and I mean that in like the best way possible. But it
Yeah.
takes a very significant human to be able to do what you've done and to just come back here. But he's here having to pay for his own medical bills. Like that's insane to me. And I mean, dude, you were out there fighting a war for another country and are now back here in the US just having to deal with the repercussions of that. Like I can't imagine like just what you're going through now.
Yeah.
Like what are you going through now?
Oh, dude, I absolutely, I was interviewed by some news stations and stuff because, and they all ask me like, do you regret going? And I always tell them the same thing. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Even if somebody told me before, hey, you're gonna go out there, you're gonna get hurt, I would still get my ass back in that Humvee and go help. I genuinely don't regret it. It sucks because it did cost me like my dream job. I was trying to be a firefighter before I got hit, but now that I lost my eye, I can't get hired. So now that's why I'm going nursing, you know, still able to help, you know. I want to be a trauma nurse. But yeah, I don't regret it one bit, you know. And I feel like I'm also still helping any way I can. I'm still helping. I'm getting medical supplies to the boys out there, some armor and stuff like that. And I'm with these Ukrainian groups that are sending drones over there to go help them.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, I feel like the lessons I've learned are priceless, you know, and it just makes me want to be that much more of a protector, you know. I make sure my family, I tell my friends, be ready be ready just in case anything happens. You guys gotta be ready, because I feel like in this day and age, being a strong male figure in a family is kind of viewed as it's frowned upon, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, like it's sad.
It's very sad, dude. Jordan and I say it all the time of like, I know it sounds so cheesy to say, but it's so real if you actually get the importance of it. But we say it all the time of like, if we had better men in the world, like half this crap wouldn't exist.
No.
Right? Instead of having all the keyboard warriors that we have in modern
yeah.
day, if we had more men that were striving to be protectors, providers, but that doesn't, and people will twist our words too, but that doesn't mean you're just like some hard ass dude. It means you're just an all around good human.
Yeah, you stand for something.
Yeah, and you're taking care of those around you.
Yeah.
And you're doing it from the posture of that's what we're called to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to stand for something. And you know, I think I was just telling my brother how we were having a conversation, but I told him if everybody likes you as a person, if everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong.
Oh yeah.
You know?
100%.
And I see it all the time, even at work. You know, if everybody tries so hard to be liked by everybody,
Yeah.
you're doing something wrong. If you're a good dude and you got people that don't like you, it's, you know, it's obviously a bad thing if every freaking person thinks you're a dick, you know, like,
Yeah.
but you know, if you're you got to be. It's good to have people not agree with you, or because that means you're standing for something, and so you can't make everybody happy.
No.
Because if you do, it shows that you have no backbone.
Yeah.
You're a chameleon.
Yeah.
You just blend in.
Yeah. And that's no way to live. There's absolutely no way to live, because what kind of example are you showing to, your kids or your friends or family?
Yeah.
I feel like you're a representation of, your family name, and for me, I mean, dude, growing up, my parents were, immigrants. They came here. Dude, I've had some like racist people I've come across, and I've heard people say remarks, and, racist remarks. And I kind of look at them, and a lot of them get shocked when they don't know my story, where I'm like, yo, my parents are immigrants. Both of their sons served in the Marine Corps. We served our country, and then I went and I served, to help another country as well, allies of the U.S. And I still serve. I've served in the ambulance. I've served my community locally. So, don't tell me anything about, this racist shit. Like, no, I think I've done more than certain people that are American, that are born here, and so.
Well, dude, that's what makes this freaking country the best country on the face of this planet. The fact that you served it and still had the balls to go do what you were called to go do for another country. There's freaking so many people now in today's world, in the younger generation, that won't even have the balls to go to our own country and serve.
Yep.
So
Well, that's another thing, man. Like, that's one thing I've found out. Like, the more people that you talk to whose family were, be it their first generation or second generation immigrants to the United States, they have such greater appreciation for the freedoms that we have in this country, and they're so much more willing to protect those freedoms than the people that, like we said, the soft men that make hard times. They grew up and they're like, oh, I'm just entitled to this because it's what I was, it's my birthright. And it's like, no, man, you gotta, like, we want to keep this country like the greatest country on the planet. We want to keep the freedoms that we have. We want to keep, we want men to stand for something. And when they say they're going to do something, they do it, and you're a prime example of that. You're not just talking about something, you're standing for something that you actually believed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the way I still continue now, obviously still working in the ER, trying to be a nurse, but I'm also like, I'm going to Camp Pendleton. I've gone to go speak to like different units. I spoke to 2-1 a few months ago. They just kind of got a little formation together with some dudes, and I brought my gear, and I was telling them about my time in Ukraine, to these like young, infantry Marines. It's crazy, man, because like one of those Marines, he was born in 2007. Yeah,
I was in Iraq.
Little grunt, dude. Yeah, you see, and now he's a freaking little Lance Corporal, and I'm like, God, dude. But I feel like I'd be doing a disservice. Like I said, if I didn't go talk to them and tell them about my experiences and teach them, like, hey, because, dude, I was a Lance Corporal, and we're sitting in the defense digging a hole, and you're like, dude, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
When are we gonna fight in trenches and holes, And then guess what I was doing out there? 2022, I was fighting in a trench, and so it's a very real thing, and I think it's good for them to see, like, coming from a Marine that was in their shoes, dude, this stuff still applies.
Yeah.
And there's fundamentals to this, and the questions that these Marines were asking me, it just, for me, it reassured me that at least, hey, the Marine Corps still has some fucking ballsy dudes that are still willing to go, punch the enemy in the mouth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just, like I said, I try to share my experiences, my stories, things that I've learned with other people, so they could go ahead and prepare themselves or pass on that knowledge.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, man. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here with us. If anyone listening felt, the need to, we're going to tag him on his Instagram and stuff like that, but he's selling challenge coins, some patches as well. All this stuff is going to help him basically cover the expenses that will essentially last him his lifetime. Not necessarily a dollar amount, but the lessons he's learned, the injuries he sustained, these things are never going to go away.
And you just so you guys know, I already know the answer. You were not covered by any of your insurances.
No,
Correct?
Yeah, because I left my job. I took a leave of absence to
Right.
go out there. So
And
you're not
VA
covered.
won't cover it either, correct?
No, because
Right.
I don't get anything from the VA. Because even when I was in the Marine Corps, I never went to medical. I was not that
Yeah.
person to get. So I don't have anything, in terms
Yeah.
of the VA. So yeah, like the patches and coins.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the patches are from the logo from the logo of our squad in Ukraine. Ironically, it's the same eye that I lost, but.
I know that's kind of trippy.
Yeah. Before I even got hurt, this was our patch. The letters, it's Ukrainian letters for Reconnaissance Strike Group. But the patch has my call sign, my brigade, and it has the Ukraine and U.S. flag.
Yeah.
So
if you're called to want to support him, there's ways to do it. It doesn't even have to be this challenge coin. Like I said, we're going to tag him. If you want, message him, follow him, share his story, share this episode, go on the Urban Valor one, share that. And honestly,
I'll link that one too.
out of everything, it's just about sharing experiences. And we've all said it. We talked about it. I think we already said it on this episode. But what good would we all be sitting here, or anyone that's listening to this, if you have a story, which you do, because every single person does, what good are we doing if we just keep that to ourselves? We're never going to evolve and get better. We're never going to grow and get better. And we're never going to get stronger and get better if we just keep everything to ourselves. And Gio is a prime example of being selfless and, answering a call that he felt called to. And that takes more balls than I can even describe to you.
Yeah.
And again, dude, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your United States service, but
Yeah.
also just, dude, thank you for being a man and going and doing something that you felt was the right thing to do, and actually like standing on that. There's a lot of people that will talk about it, but the fact that you stood on it, man, I have the utmost respect for that.
Same.
thank you guys. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And any other last things?
No, man.
Say your Instagram out loud though, in case somebody is only listening.
Yeah, so the Instagram is Doc. It's a DOC _ of Wolf, WOLF 03. And yeah.
Perfect. Well, again, we're going to tag it. We're going to share it. Dude, I want your story to get out there, man.
Thank
you.
There's actually a couple people, as you were talking, and we'll talk more offline, but that I want to introduce you to.
Awesome.
I think
Thank you.
maybe could find a way to help you out with some of this stuff if you chose to. But
Yeah.
another great episode, my dude.
Another great episode,
you,
Gio.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember,
Yeah, thank you.
be a good dude, be a good dad.